I just want to do a little bit about the sample structure of the transition first, and it's quite important just to be aware who the parties are, who are your moving parts in the jigsaw. The obvious one is there's the company, it's usually a company, but the organisation whose ownership is in potentially going to transition. You've got the owner or owners who own the company as at today. You've got the employees who may acquire some or all of the shares. Some of these models involve employees acquiring shares, some actually don't involve the employees acquiring any shares at all. There's nearly always an employee benefit trust. Not always, but nearly always, and particularly with some of the tax reliefs that are coming through this year, they're very much dependent on a trust being part of that structure. So almost all of these transactions will have an employee benefit trust. There's sometimes a share incentive plan. If people want to give the employees the opportunity to acquire shares, you will nearly always use a share incentive plan solely for that purpose. It serves no purpose other than that to an ability to let employees own shares in a more tax efficient way. And then there's a funder involved in this, which may be a bank, it may be one of the specialist funding providers, or indeed it may be the vendor themselves. But these are your main parties that will sit within that structure that the transaction will be based around. So I just thought I'd jump straight in at the front end and just take you through a sample transaction so that then everything else that comes after this, you can sort of see how it fits into the model. So you've got your owner, you've got your employees. You would often establish a new employee benefit trust, set up a new share incentive plan. There may be a bank involved. Whether the bank's involved or not often depends on the business's attitude to debt. Some people actually, a lot of businesses at the moment are actually preferring to self-fund. So you would start off where, and I apologise, it's not actually coming up so well on this, but hopefully you can see it on your handout. But the company would often borrow cash from the funder, which would involve granting security to the funder as well. So the cash goes into the company. If the employees are going to put in any cash up front, it often goes through the share incentive plan. The company then contributes that cash to the employee benefits trust or a company owned by the trust. It depends partly on the structure, but basically the cash goes into the trust. The company can either lend the money to the trust or they could do it as a gift, a contribution. Then the shares move around and the cash goes up. So the cash goes from the trust up to the owner. The share incentive plan transfers cash to the owner as well, and as well as cash, that might well be debt going to the owner as well if the owner is in fact the funder. In exchange for that, shares will go into the trust and shares will go into the share incentive plan. Some people don't put the share incentive plan until later in the day. They just use the trust as the vessel for 100% of the transaction up front. And in some cases, the owner isn't disposing of all their shares. They might be disposing of, say, 75% or just a majority. The new tax relief that's coming in effect later this year, where you can sell your shares into the trust free of capital gains tax, requires only that a majority of shares go into the trust. So some people, that's a reason for them just doing a majority. So on a very simple, not all transactions are alike, but this is just one example of how the money moves and the shares move.